Today, we journey to Russia, the largest country on Earth. When people think of Russia, some jokingly call it the land of the Russians, while others associate it with the thousands of international sanctions imposed in recent years. But is life here really as harsh as the world often imagines? Do people survive on raw meat through the endless winters? Do they truly battle temperatures that plunge to -71 degrees Celsius? Or is there a completely different reality waiting to be discovered? Is life in Russia peaceful, unforgiving, or far stranger than most of us have ever believed? Russia covers more than 17 million square kilometers, making it the largest nation on the planet. Its territory is so vast that when you're standing at its western edge, the sun may have already risen hours ago in the Far East. Stretching across 11 time zones, Russia spans both Europe and Asia, crossing endless taiga forests, sweeping grasslands, towering mountain ranges, and remote regions where human footprints are rare. Traveling within Russia can sometimes feel like crossing an entire continent. Yet despite its immense size and more than 190 ethnic groups, Russia's population is only about 145 million. That means some regions are as large as entire countries, yet remain almost empty. This contrast defines modern Russia. Major cities are crowded, modern, and vibrant. But drive a few hundred kilometers beyond them, and the landscape can quickly transform into silent wilderness, so vast and isolated that it feels unsettling. Moscow alone, home to over 13 million people, serves as the country's political and economic heart. Its streets are clean, its infrastructure modern, and its transportation system remarkably organized. But before exploring the city itself, there is a tradition many Russians deeply enjoy. It's called banya, a traditional wooden steam bath heated to intense temperatures. After sitting in the scorching steam, people gently strike their bodies with soaked birch branches. The alternating waves of heat and cold help them relax while stimulating blood circulation. And that's only the beginning. Many Russians step directly from the steam room into the snow, or plunge into frozen lakes in the middle of winter. It sounds unbelievable, yet in Russia, it's surprisingly common. Every year on January 19th, thousands take part in the tradition of immersing themselves in icy waters. They believe it cleanses the soul and brings strength and good health for the year ahead. To prepare for the ritual, thick layers of ice must be cut or drilled open, creating a large pool of water even as temperatures can fall below -20 degrees Celsius. In another remarkable story, for young women in Vladivostok once attracted widespread attention after wearing bikinis and jumping into icy water during the middle of winter. The temperature was well below freezing. For most people, it's hard to imagine enduring such conditions. Yet scenes like this continue to fascinate outsiders. Could traditions like these be one of the reasons Russians are often associated with fair skin and a youthful appearance? For many, even a cold shower feels challenging. Yet in Russia, extreme cold is often embraced as part of everyday life. In the West, Russia is sometimes portrayed as poor, outdated, or lacking modern comforts. But when locals describe their lives, a different picture often emerges. Many residents of rural areas say life is simple but comfortable. An income of around 50,000 rubles per month is often enough to cover basic expenses. Older citizens receive pensions, while younger people generally have access to work opportunities. People may not consider themselves wealthy, but many do not feel deprived either. What is particularly interesting is that many Russians have little interest in comparing their lives to those in America or Western Europe. Clean air, homegrown food, lower living costs, and a less stressful lifestyle are often viewed as more valuable. For some, bread, clean water, and peace are enough. This sense of stability is also one reason many citizens continue to support President Putin, not necessarily because of poverty or pressure, but because they believe the country has maintained order and stability. Yet this is only one small part of Russia's story. Beyond that calm surface lies a country full of surprises. Many Russians see their nation as a sovereign power, gradually reclaiming its influence on the world stage. And once you leave the major cities behind, you begin to discover a very different Russia. One of the first things that stands out is the traditional wooden house. At first glance, these homes seem modest, but a closer look reveals their unique character. Many are built from stacked logs that release the scent of natural pine. The design provides excellent insulation during long, freezing winters. Their exterior may appear rustic, but inside they often contain all the comforts of a modern home. Wooden staircases connect the upper floors, while furniture, ceilings, and window frames are crafted from the same material, creating a warm and unified atmosphere. Everything feels distinctly Russian. And in a country where winter can seem endless, a sauna is almost a necessity. But that is only one aspect of daily life. As our journey continues, we arrive at a school complex that surprises many visitors. The campus is enormous, surrounded by roads on all four sides. Unlike many countries where elementary, middle, and high schools are separate, students here can often complete their education within the same complex. That helps explain its impressive size. The facilities include playgrounds, football fields, ice skating rinks, hockey courts, and even swimming pools. During winter, students typically bring 2 pairs of shoes, one for outdoors and another kept clean for indoor use. Even visitors are often asked to wear shoe covers to maintain cleanliness. Wide hallways are lined with organized coat areas where students hang their heavy winter jackets before class. There are even benches for parents waiting nearby. Another unexpected feature is the school's auditorium. Large and modern, it can host major events and even serve as a shelter during emergencies. But if you think international sanctions have completely disrupted everyday life in Russia, reality is more complex. In many regions, gas stations operate normally. Long fuel lines and widespread shortages are far less common than many outsiders imagine. Most stations include convenience stores, fast food counters, coffee machines, and clean restrooms for travelers. Transactions are handled efficiently, complete with receipts. According to longtime employees, fuel shortages occasionally occur due to transportation issues, but are usually resolved quickly. Another interesting fact is that natural gas is widely used as vehicle fuel in Russia, especially for taxis and buses. The reason is simple. It is significantly cheaper than conventional gasoline. And then, we arrive at one of the strangest stops of our journey. A themed restaurant so unusual that many visitors start laughing the moment they walk through the door. The staff do far more than serve food. They become characters. Police officers, doctors, nurses, even patients. One moment you're quietly enjoying a drink. Seconds later, a doctor appears to check on your condition. Before you can react, a police officer may arrive asking to inspect your documents. It feels as if you've accidentally stepped into a live performance where everyone knows the script except you. But the food is where things become truly memorable. One beef dish arrives on a construction shovel. Salads are served inside giant syringes. Want extra sauce? You inject it yourself. Some meals come in metal buckets. Others hang suspended in the air, leaving diners equally amused and confused. Yet even this isn't the strangest place we've encountered. That title might belong to a weekend flea market run largely by retirees. A place that seems to follow no organizational rules whatsoever. People simply arrive, open the trunk of a car, spread a cloth on the ground, and start selling. The result is a fascinating mix of objects. Belts sit beside repair tools. A few meters away, Soviet-era relics and World War II memorabilia appear without warning. Old mechanical watches, vintage coins, military medals, brass bells, bicycle seats, televisions that have survived for decades. Each item feels like a forgotten fragment of history. Amber can be found everywhere, from jewelry to unpolished stones. Clothing is displayed just as casually. No shelves, no racks, just laid directly on the ground for anyone interested enough to stop and browse. At first glance, the market seems chaotic, but that spontaneity is exactly what makes it special. It feels like a giant open-air secondhand museum where every object carries its own story. One section specializes in clothes and bags. Another is dedicated to electronic components. Watches, fountain pens, and shoes are packed closely together. Book lovers can wander through entire corners filled with aging volumes. Perhaps the most surprising sight is seeing stacks of books left outside, even during light rain. No cover, no protection, no elaborate organization. Everything simply exists as part of the rhythm of the market. And that's when many visitors realize something important. Russia is often far more complex than the stereotypes heard from afar. The market only operates on Saturdays and Sundays. Each weekend, residents from nearby villages make their way here. People bring whatever they have. They sell whatever they choose. Most vendors are elderly men and women who retired years ago. Some are well into their 80s. What stands out is that many don't seem overly concerned about how much they sell. For them, the market is also a social gathering, a place to meet friends, exchange stories, and enjoy the weekend. Walking through it feels like entering an outdoor museum. Old bicycle parts, worn wheels, boxes of screws, rusting tools, countless objects that seem to belong to another era. Some bicycle saddles look so old that you wonder whether anyone still uses them, or whether they exist solely for collectors. Further down, antique brass instruments appear, mechanical devices weathered by time, and objects so obscure that even locals sometimes struggle to remember their original purpose. Many sit silently on display, as if they are telling stories from a vanished age. Then, among all these aging relics, something completely unexpected appears, a massive cowhide. And right beside it, a section selling live rabbits and poultry, housed in large cages stacked behind trucks. Just another reminder that in Russia, the unusual often feels perfectly ordinary. And yes, some vendors even arrive with trucks. The sheer volume of goods has long surpassed what an ordinary car could carry. The market feels like a miniature world of its own, a place where completely unrelated things somehow coexist in perfect harmony. For gardening enthusiasts, it is especially hard to resist. Apple trees, pears, plums, cherries, blueberries, grapevines, climbing roses, decorative pines. Hundreds of young plants are displayed in neat rows, each accompanied by a picture showing what it will look like when fully grown. The roots are carefully wrapped to retain moisture. Most cost only a few dollars. Simple, yet surprisingly appealing. Because in a country where winter dominates much of the year, growing a beautiful garden is often a source of pride. Even the furniture reflects another era. Heavy, rustic, almost as if it had been transported directly from decades ago. Nearby, old axes with thick wooden handles and massive steel heads remind visitors of the tools that shaped generations of Russian life. Yet despite appearances, the market is not entirely chaotic. Between the improvised stalls stand permanent structures with matching roofs and organized walkways. Vegetables, spices, flowers, and household goods each occupy their own sections. From a distance, it resembles a small commercial district. At first, many visitors wonder how so much merchandise appears every day. Then they remember, it doesn't. This is a weekend market, operating only 2 days a week. Perhaps that rarity is exactly what makes it special. But if frozen lakes still haven't sent a chill down your spine, our next destination certainly will. Because now we travel to one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth. A place where minus 40 degrees Celsius is considered normal. Welcome to Yakutsk, Russia's coldest city. Located deep within Siberia's permafrost region, Yakutsk is home to more than 300,000 people. Winter temperatures frequently drop below minus 50 degrees Celsius. Historically, the region has recorded temperatures as low as minus 71, numbers that sound more like science fiction than reality. Yet for local residents, this is simply everyday life. If you wake up and see minus 48 degrees on your phone, there is little reason to panic. In Yakutsk, that can still be considered a relatively mild day. To survive such conditions, residents have developed unique housing solutions. One common design is the traditional two-story wooden house. Wood is often preferred over steel because extreme cold can make metal brittle and more vulnerable to damage. Most buildings contain only a few apartments. Entrances usually feature 2 separate doors, creating an extra barrier against heat loss. Every detail is designed to keep warmth inside. Not all buildings have aged well, however. As the permafrost beneath them shifts over time, foundations can move and walls may begin to crack. Another familiar sight is the Soviet-era apartment block. These massive concrete buildings stand on elevated supports. The goal is to reduce heat transfer into the frozen ground below and prevent the permafrost from thawing. Hundreds of these structures remain in use today. At the same time, modern residential complexes continue to rise across the city. Many range from 9 to 16 stories high and include schools, daycare centers, shops, parking areas, and other essential services. The objective is simple: reduce the need to go outdoors during the brutal winter months. Because in Yakutsk, even a short walk at minus 50 degrees can become a serious challenge. Yet housing is only part of the story. What amazes many visitors most is how residents handle everyday tasks such as bathing and laundry. In a place where temperatures can plunge below minus 70 degrees, taking a bath is no quick routine. In some areas, families still rely on separate wooden bathhouses. Before anyone can wash, a wood-burning stove must be lit and maintained for hours. Preparation alone may take up to 5 hours. Outside lies a frozen world. Inside, temperatures can exceed 70 degrees Celsius. 2 completely different worlds separated by a single wooden door. For this reason, many residents bathe only once or twice a week. Not because they want to, because every bath requires significant time and effort. Once the bathhouse is heated, snow is often brought inside and melted to provide water. While men prepare firewood and heating, women traditionally handle much of the laundry. As for family life, it continues normally. Homes are equipped with heating systems, making many online myths about survival in the cold greatly exaggerated. No matter where they live, however, Yakutsk residents share one daily ritual before stepping outdoors. Layers. Lots of layers. Thermal underwear, camel wool socks, heavy coats, hats, gloves, and fur-lined boots that are considered essential. In conditions like these, ordinary footwear quickly becomes useless. One look outside is enough to understand why most people try not to remain outdoors for more than 15 to 20 minutes at a time. That is precisely why bus stops in Yakutsk are often fully enclosed and heated. Without them, people would be forced to stand for long periods in winds that can be dangerously cold. Outside, almost everything is covered in ice. And that makes owning a car a challenge of its own. To ensure their vehicles start each morning, many residents install specialized heating systems. Some cars are effectively kept warm throughout the entire night. Because at these temperatures, starting an engine is no longer a simple task. For this reason, people avoid driving unless absolutely necessary. There is an unwritten rule that everyone understands. Never leave your engine off for too long in winter. Otherwise, you may spend hours trying to start it again. Many drivers even carry portable heating equipment or emergency fuel systems to warm frozen engines when needed. Spend only a few minutes outside, and you'll see it for yourself. Hair freezes. Eyebrows turn white. Even eyelashes become coated with ice crystals. Every breath instantly transforms into a cloud of vapor. It looks beautiful, almost cinematic, but the reality is incredibly harsh. That is why most people limit their time outdoors whenever possible. Yakutsk is also one of Russia's most famous fur trading centers. For centuries, fur coats here have not simply been symbols of luxury. They have been tools of survival. These thick garments are designed to withstand temperatures most people will never experience in their lifetime. Yet perhaps the most surprising thing is this. Even in such conditions, the markets remain open, day after day, often operating 10 to 12 hours without interruption. Stalls are filled with fish naturally frozen after being caught from nearby rivers and lakes. Reindeer meat, horse meat, duck, and even bear meat. Everything is displayed in the open air, as though nature itself has become a giant freezer. Fish lie frozen solid, like pieces of wood. Blocks of meat stand stacked in long rows. To outsiders, the scene can seem unbelievable. To locals, it is simply another ordinary day. If you dislike frozen food, this may not be the place for you. Because in Yakutsk, nature performs the job of refrigeration. Not everything can be left outside. However, cash registers, computers, electronic devices, all must be protected and kept warm with small heaters. Otherwise, they can stop functioning after only a few hours in the cold. Fresh fruits and vegetables are relatively expensive because they must be transported from distant regions. Meat, on the other hand, is more affordable and serves as a crucial source of energy during the long winter months. But Yakutsk is only one chapter of Russia's story. Across this vast country, people consume foods that many outsiders have never even heard of. And this may be the strangest part of today's journey. Russian cuisine, a world where some dishes sound surprising before you even taste them. One example is kopelhan, a traditional food found in parts of the Arctic North. It is typically made from reindeer meat or marine mammals. The meat is buried and left in freezing conditions for months, allowing it to ferment naturally. Over time, its texture and flavor change completely. To local communities, it is considered a delicacy. But for outsiders, it can be extremely dangerous. The human body may not be adapted to the compounds produced during the fermentation process. As a result, kopelhan remains one of the most controversial and unusual foods associated with the Arctic world. And it serves as a reminder of an important truth. When survival depends on the environment, people often develop traditions that seem extraordinary to those living elsewhere. But the story becomes even stranger. Among some reindeer herding communities of the Arctic, people have traditionally consumed protein-rich foods taken directly from animals in ways that many visitors find difficult to imagine. For most travelers, hearing the description alone is enough to discourage them from trying these dishes. And if you're picturing the lively street food scenes common across many Asian countries, Russia may surprise you. Because of the harsh climate, much of the country's food culture takes place indoors, in restaurants, cafes, and covered markets. Street food exists, but on a far smaller scale. One popular snack is dried beef. Dark red slices of lean meat, firm in texture, rich in flavor. The longer you chew, the more intense the taste becomes. And of course, no journey through Russia would be complete without mentioning cheese. Rows of colorful cheeses stretch across market stalls. From soft white fresh cheese to golden brown smoked varieties braided into decorative bundles. Nearby stand large containers filled with amber-colored honey. A simple yet unmistakably Russian combination. And then we arrive at perhaps the most shocking food of all, kiviak, a traditional delicacy associated with Arctic indigenous communities. Hundreds of small seabirds are placed inside the body of a marine animal and buried underground for months, sometimes more than a year, to ferment naturally. When finally opened, the smell alone can be overwhelming. For many outsiders, it is almost impossible to approach. Yet for the people who have preserved this tradition for generations, it is a treasured cultural food and an important part of their heritage. And perhaps that is what makes Russia so fascinating. A vast land, harsh and unforgiving at times, filled with customs that seem strange to outsiders, yet endlessly captivating. From humble weekend markets, to frozen cities where life continues at temperatures few people can imagine, to foods that much of the world would never dare to taste. Every place tells a different story. Every region reveals another side of this enormous country. And the deeper you explore, the more you realize that Russia is far more complex than the stereotypes often associated with it. So what about you? What surprised you most about life in Russia? Leave your thoughts in the comments and share your perspective with the World Stories community. Thank you for joining us all the way to the end of today's journey. Until next time, goodbye, and we'll see you again on another adventure into the world's most fascinating places.